So the Most High has rules and regulations for what we can eat and what we cannot eat. I'm going to read to you what we can and cannot eat in Leviticus chapter 11 verse 3. Whatsoever parteth the hoof and is cloven footed. That means the hoof has to be split. And cheweth the cud, which means it eats something, swallows it, it comes back up, it regurgitates and chews it, and then swallows it again, so that it can filter out the bacteria. Whatsoever parteth the hoof and is cloven hooded and chew the cud among the beasts, that shall ye eat. Verse 4. Nevertheless, these shall you not eat, of them that chew the cud, or them that divide the hoof. As the camel, because he cheweth the cud, but does not divide the hoof, he is unclean to you, so you cannot eat the camel. And the coney, which is a rabbit, because he chewed the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the hare, which is also a rabbit, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. Verse 7. And the swine, which is a pig, for all you guys who love to eat pork, though he divideth the hoof and be cloven footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean to you. Verse 8. Of their flesh ye shall not eat, and of their carcass ye shall not touch. They are unclean to you. Now it's going to talk about everything that lives underwater. These shall ye eat of them that are in the waters. Whatsoever hath fins and scales in the waters and in the seas and in the rivers, them shall you eat. And all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination unto you. So that means if you're going to eat seafood, the seafood that you eat has to have fins and it has to have scales. If it does not have fins or scales, it's an abomination. So you can eat salmon, you can eat tuna, but you cannot eat crawfish or shrimp or lobster or crabs or catfish, because catfish have fins but they don't have scales. And for all y'all nasty people who like to eat octopus, it don't have fins or scales, it's an abomination unto you. Verse 14. No, I'm gonna start verse 13. And these are they which ye shall have in abomination among the fowls. So these are the birds that are an abomination unto you. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination. What's an abomination? Let's find out. The eagle and the ossifrage and the osprey and the vulture and the kite after its kind. Every raven after its kind, and the owl and the nighthawk and the chook owl and the hawk after its kind. Verse 17. And the little owl and the cormorant and the great owl. So those are all birds of prey. Birds that swoop down to get their prey off the ground and eat it. Those you cannot eat, okay? And the swan and the pelican and the gear eagle, which is a seagull. Those are the birds of the ocean, which are web-footed birds that you can't eat. And the stork and the heron after her kind, and the lapwing and the bat. Well, a bat is a mammal, we know that, but a fowl is just something that flies in the air. So you can't eat the bat either. It's really a type of rodent. And all fowls that creep going upon all four shall be an abomination unto you. Yet these may ye eat of every flying creeping thing that goeth upon the earth on all fours, which have legs above their feet to leap withal upon the earth. Verse 22. Even these of them ye may eat. So I was saying, these are the type of insects that you may eat. The locust after its kind, and the bald locust after its kind, and the beetle after its kind, and the grasshopper after its kind. So the only types of insects that you can eat is the locust and the beetle and the grasshopper and the cricket, and that's it. But all other flying creeping things which have 4 feet shall be an abomination unto you. And for these ye shall be unclean. whosoever touches the carcass of them shall be unclean until evening. If you touch the carcass of a bug that you cannot eat, you will be unclean. Verse 27. And whatsoever goeth upon his paws among all manner of beasts that go on all four, those are unclean unto you. Whoso touches the carcass shall be unclean until the evening. So if you eat a dog and cat and lion and everything that walks around on paws, that is abomination unto you. It's an abomination. And if you touch it, you shall be unclean until evening. These also shall be unclean unto you. These also shall be unclean unto you, among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after its kind, and the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole. So you cannot eat those. The rodents and the reptiles, you can't eat those. Verse 31. These are unclean to you among all that creep. Whosoever doth touch them, when they be dead, shall be unclean until evening. So if you touch a dead, unclean animal, then you shall be unclean until evening. Verse 32. And upon whatsoever any of them which are dead doth fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel or wood or remnant or skin or sack, whatsoever vessel it may be, wherein any work is done, it must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until evening, and so it shall be cleansed. So if any of your belongings touch an unclean dead animal, it shall be washed, and it shall be unclean until evening. Now I'm going to skip down to verse 39. And if any beast of which ye may eat die, he that touches the carcass thereof shall be unclean until evening. So if you touch the dead body of a clean animal, you are unclean until evening still. And verse 40. And he that eateth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. If you eat the carcass of it, you shall wash your clothes and be unclean until evening. And he also that beareth the carcass of it shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. So if you pick it up, you shall wash your clothes and be unclean until evening. And every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth shall be an abomination. It shall not be eaten. Whatsoever goeth upon his belly, like a snake, and whatsoever goeth upon all fours, like a lizard or something, or whatsoever hath more feet among all creeping things that creep upon the earth, like a spider or a centipede or a millipede, them ye shall not eat, for they are an abomination. Ye shall not make yourselves abominable with any creeping thing that creepeth, neither shall ye make yourselves unclean with them, that ye shall be defiled thereby. So what we know so far is that we cannot eat the camel or the coney or the rabbit or the pig or anything that lives in water without fins or scales, or birds of prey or ravens or web-footed birds or bats, or every bird except the grasshopper, the cricket, and the locust, all rodents, reptiles, amphibians, and anything with many legs, and anything that walks on paws. They're all abomination, and we cannot eat them. But just because there's a lot of animals that we cannot eat, there's also maybe almost equally as much animals that we can eat, like the cow, the sheep, the ox, the chicken, the any fish with fins and scales, the cricket, the grasshopper, the locust, the deer, the buffalo, the moose, and the goat, the ram, and the quail. Those we can't eat. We can eat those. They're clean. Now I'm gonna go to Leviticus 19 and 23, because it's not just types of meat that are unclean and clean. There's also other things that have rules by. Leviticus 19 verse 23. And when ye shall come into the land, and shall have planted all manner of trees for food, then ye shall count the fruit thereof as uncircumcised. 3 years shall it be uncircumcised unto you, it shall not be eaten of. So if you cannot eat fruit from a tree that is less than 3 years old. If a tree is 2 years old, you can't eat its fruit, and if the tree is just beginning to grow, you cannot eat its fruit as well. Now we're gonna go to Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 21. This is the only time that God will allow you to eat unclean meats, okay? If the place which the Lord thy God hath chosen to put his name there to be too far from thee, then thou shalt kill of thy herd of thy flock which the Lord hath given thee, as I have commanded thee, and thou shalt eat in the gates whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. So the Bible says if you're too far from your land, that means if you're stranded out in the middle of nowhere, then you can eat whatever it takes to survive, okay? Even as the roebuck and the hart is eaten, so thou shalt eat them, the unclean and the clean alike. Only be sure that thou eat not the blood, for the blood is the life, and thou mayest not eat the life with the flesh. So it's saying if your land is too far away, you're stranded out in the middle of nowhere, then you can eat whatever it takes to survive, but just do not eat the blood. Shalom.